Evelyn to Philip, V. Mail, dated June 14, 1944. Darling, today, a miserable rainy day, is the day Harry and Goldie's daughter, Diana Jean Strongen, chose to be born. Yes, dear one, it is a girl, and she weighed 6 pounds, 10½ ounces. Goldie went to the hospital at 1 a.m. this morning, and Diana was born at about 9. Goldie knew nothing of the delivery or how she gave birth, as they gave her an ether enema, a sort of twilight delivery. I never got to bed till almost 4 a.m., and after a hectic day of calling everyone, 6 hours of work, and a workout with our own little Adele Barra, I'm kind of worn out. Your letter of May 28th came through this morning with the poppy enclosed. Adele ripped it apart before I even learned what it was. I'd like to know what happened to your letters between the 21st and 28th. In this letter, you say you didn't write the night before simply because you weren't in a writing mood. Honey, I'm never in a writing mood when nighttime comes, 'cause I'm tired. I'm tickled for an opportunity to sit down and just relax my nerves. But nevertheless, I write, tired or no. When, on those rare occasions when I do skip, it is simply because there was absolutely no time. It's okay, baby, but don't be mad at me if I too happen to skip. Goldie's father called a short while ago and doesn't seem satisfied about the name. He insists that the baby be called Dora after Goldie's mother, and I think it will be a great disappointment to him if Goldie decides to stick to Diana Jean. Harry says, well, Phil and I have the girls. Let Jake have the boys. He thinks, as you did, that the baby is an ugly duckling, and this is the closest description I can get. The baby isn't as well-rounded as our Adele was, but it does have a full round face and little curly black hair. Harry says it looks like Goldie, and Goldie says it looks like Harry. I'm sure the baby will be a blonde when it is a little older. Harry thinks it has Goldie's nose. Oh, I could keep this up for hours. Goldie feels fine, and I think she is going to nurse for a while, as the doctor thinks it is better that way. Considering the way she carried, the baby is rather small. I was half Goldie's size, and Adele weighed 6'14". Goldie, however, did carry very nicely and gained 20 pounds altogether. I'm not making paragraphs because I have a lot to say, and it is very, very late. Adele says "thank du" for thank you. And listen to this. This morning I kept telling her about Dodo and her having a baby, so that when I asked her who's going to have a baby, she said Dodo. What's the baby going to do? And Adele cries. When asked what she's going to do to the baby, she squeezes herself with her arms, meaning that she'll hug it to bits. She said baby distinctly. In fact, Adele says most everything. She repeats everything I say, though it is indistinct at times. She's learning very quickly, though. I called Gloria at the hospital where she works, and she says she's going to mail you another package. And I think, sweetness, that I've just about had my say for the day. Please excuse me, honey, and incidentally, you haven't heard from Lil, and the reason, she's very ill with a sinus infection and can hardly use her voice. I'd like very much to have you gather me close at this moment and hold me tight. Phil, darling, I love you so very much, and I'm so terribly anxious to see you. Still keeping our date, though I have to do so at work. A big hug and 100 lingering kisses from your Ev. Philip to Evelyn, 15 June 1944. Darling Ev, though this is dated 15th, because that is the date today, I know that it is, to all intents and purposes, to serve as my contribution for the 14th. Why didn't I write on the 14th? Don't be so impatient. I was about to tell you. In the morning, yesterday, I was busy on the officers' pay vouchers. In the afternoon, I was occupied with the informational roster. In all, a very full and satisfying day. Earlier in the afternoon, Klein had stopped in the orderly room to ask me to wake him at 5:30, which is when he must start getting cleaned up for his nightly chore of driving the bus on the officers' Liberty run. I told him I wanted to go along to see Mrs. Wolfe and her new baby. We met Bert and Rita at the store, and the four of us, and the dog, Toppy, who is a very wise-looking Sealyham, taxied out to the nursing home where Evelyn was confined. She looks and feels wonderful. Her son weighed 6 pounds, 2 ounces, and appeared a healthy-looking individual. Rita keeps asking everyone if he don't think her new nephew is a smasher. By that, I take it she means he is good-looking. I'll take vanilla. I've only seen a few 3-day-old infants, and I'm invariably astounded at what everyone else is. Page 2, saying about the kid. Either they are victims of a universal delusion, or I'm just plain blind. Bert, of course, is every inch the proud parent, and walks around muttering in various shades and inflections, Nigel Keith, Nigel Kenneth. I volunteered the opinion that Neil is a nice name, whereupon he started a new rigmarole. Neil Kenneth, Neil Keith, etc., etc. Evelyn, though, is far the most interesting character of the three. If I were forced to describe her with one word, I could think of none better than placid. Yes, placid is definitely the word for Evelyn. I think if the roof suddenly came down on her head, she would hardly turn a hair. I can't put my finger on the reason for this impression, but there it is. She is soft-spoken, untroubled, and is possessed of a pair of big blue eyes that hold very steady on one's own when she is listening or talking to him. She is either very clever or not clever at all. I haven't quite made up my mind, although I'm inclined to favor the former. She is very much attached to Toppy, who is attached to anyone and everyone. Bert and Evelyn have been married 3 years and, if I know the signs, still very much in love. When they learned I am married and have a daughter, they wanted to see pictures. That was last Sunday. No, Saturday. I only had the page 3 Brighton Beach snaps with me, so I showed them. They were duly impressed. And why wouldn't they be? I still am every time I look at them, which is oftener than you think. At that time, I promised to bring some more pictures of you and the pumpkin the next time I visited them. I particularly liked the way Evelyn kept saying matter-of-factly, the next time you come. It was, don't bother to bring your soda next time you come, and don't forget to bring the pictures next time you come, and so forth. I hadn't known them more than 2 hours before they made me feel one of the family. You know how lonely I have been these past 10 months, sweet, so you can appreciate full well how grateful I am for my newly acquired friends and their warm hospitality. Almost the first thing that Evelyn said when I saw her yesterday was, "Did you bring the pictures?" To say I was surprised would be putting it mildly. I had remembered them, but it seemed to me that they would be the last thing she would think of under the circumstances. Accordingly, I decided to let it go till a more appropriate time, and left them behind. All this, Ev, should give you a pretty good insight of the characters of Bert and Evelyn Wolf. Later, Bert and Rita, Klein, and myself visited, page 4, another couple named Cohen. Her name is Sadie. I didn't catch his. They are an odd pair. She is young and blonde and attractive. He is much older, bald and gray, and has a great leonine Jewish head. He can't be very old, though, 'cause he is tall and well-built and athletic. They, too, received us most cordially, and I hope to know them better. Bert is something of a comedian and has a well-developed sense of humor. Between Klein and him, there was never a dull moment. The weather was unsettled all day, turning cool in the evening. At date time, I was sitting in the cab of the bus, while Klein went into the officers' club to inform them, the officers, that the bus was waiting. I made a mental picture of the scene with the express purpose of describing it here. It is 11 o'clock, but the sky is still light in most parts, but dark rain clouds hover off in one direction, cast a gloomy gray darkness over the ancient town, and the small shops that line both sides of the narrow, winding street are asleep for the night, blanketed by the all-pervading gloom. The breeze is cool and fresh. A solitary civilian, hands in pockets, bent over so that he couldn't possibly see anything but the pavement, hustles by, as if anxious to avoid meeting the brooding glance of the closed shop windows. A few GIs wander about forlornly or drunkenly in the, page 5, shadows. Over all is a great silence that creates a sense of suspense in the listener. So I sit and contemplate the cheerless yet interesting scene, but my thoughts at the moment are many water-filled miles away. I picture myself in a certain well-remembered, well-loved living room, more specifically, at my ease in the easy chair that I used to think wasn't quite as comfortable as it might be. Now I can't conceive how I could think that. Close and warm and filling my being with a sense of sweetness is my very own Chippy. In fancy, I kiss her brow, and most deliberately her eyes, first one, then the other, then the thrilling, pulsing sweetness of her throat, then the exulting communion of lips on lips. Finally, the earnestly whispered, "I love you, baby." Nor does this ritual lose anything of fervor in its endless repetitions. 50 years from now, or 100, darling, that profession of love will be every bit as earnest and heartfelt as it was yesterday and is today. Good night, my lovely. Kiss Adele Barra for her daddy. Love to all. Ever your Phil.